Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Welcome to our second official Startup Grind. And to get started, we're just going to introduce a few people who are here. If you could actually hold your applause until the end, and if I recognize you, could you just wave your hand around a little bit? All right, so first off is our E-Society president, Bhavin Patel. He also helps manage the seed fund. So, Bhavin, there we go. All right, also, we have Dean Gilman here, who is the project management consultant at Central IT, who also helped design Harpoon gaming software with Tom Clancy. So, okay, thanks. And then, last but not least, we have Greg Heim, who's part of the assistant professor at Mays Business School. So, awesome. And then we have our special guest speaker tonight, Dean Brundage, who is the co-founder of the New Republic Brewery.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Christopher Bybee, and I'm the Assistant Director for the Startup Grind chapter here in Aggieland. We're very excited to have Mr. Brundage here today, who's the co-founder of New Republic Brewery Company. We're just going to jump right into the interview. Mr. Brundage, obviously you've done a lot in your career. Give us a little background into what you're doing right now at New Republic Brewery Company.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me out today. I founded New Republic Brewing Company in 2010 with my partner. We sort of loosely defined our roles as inside guy and outside guy. I'm the outside guy, so I'm here outside. My partner's stuck inside in his little box. No, he's off doing some other stuff. Which then we sort of revised that into an org chart as we grew and took on more people. So I run operations, sales, distribution, quality control, a little bit of technology. You know, we basically do everything there is to do there at the brewery.
So what intrigued you most about the beverage industry?
Beverage industry sounds a little bit more broad than the beer industry. Being a brewer, starting a brewery doesn't really sound like you're going into the beverage industry, although you really are. All I just wanted to do was share my beer and have a good time and make new friends. So that's what this business is all about.
So let's take a step back. You attended California Polytech State University. What did you learn there? Tell us about your time there and what you learned to help you as an entrepreneur.
I got my Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics. I learned that going to college was pretty cool. It was quite a while ago. I made some friends, played a lot of games, got a degree, and I graduated right as the technology boom was going this way, was peaking out, so it was just impossible not to get a job in technology with any kind of STEM degree. So that's what I did.
So after attending college, you worked in the computer space. What did you learn while working in the tech space?
As relevant to entrepreneurship and what I'm doing now, not a heck of a lot. I learned a lot of very technical things, project management, interpersonal relationships, how to take a project from start to finish, and a heck of a lot of troubleshooting skills. I did technical support, I did software, and mostly how to work with people in a professional environment. Sun Microsystems, where I got my start, was 40,000 people at the time, very large organization, and trying to figure out from your small group of friends, your advisor, your little group from college, into a giant organization with 5 levels of managers above you. Kind of fun.
Okay, so back to the beer now. How in detail did New Republic get its start?
I started homebrewing in 2003, and every homebrewer has a little tiny voice in the back of their head that says, "Hey, somebody will buy your beer if you sell it. All you do is just put it out there on the market. It's this great beer. Somebody will buy it." So I moved to Texas with my wife in 2008, and from California, where there's the land of good beer culture, and I just thought it was strange that there was no brewery here in town. So I did the dumb thing and started one myself. It was so I founded a homebrew club here in town. There was no homebrew club. Step one, find a bunch of other people who think the same way as you, and get together and drink beer. And then when I really finally made the decision in late 2009, early 2010, I knew that I had no business experience. So I decided to find somebody who did. I partnered up with somebody. And luckily, I found somebody dumb enough to accept my challenge in the homebrew club. He's got a little bit of business experience and about the same amount of passion for sharing and making beer that I did. So in May of 2010, sat down at Ozona's on the deck. It was beautiful with our two wives, and said, "Hey, we're gonna start a brewery," and made the decision to do it. And it took about a year of planning and permitting and acquiring equipment, and in May of 2011, we made our first sale.
Just going off that, what would you say is different about New Republic Brewery Company than, say, your typical beer?
Typical beer is, well, there's a lot of American light lager out there. That's what your typical beer might be, what somebody might drink. But we're a craft brewer company, which we have about 10% of the market share right now. In general, craft beer, of the beer market, 10% is craft beer at most. And so we make a flavorful product. We compete on quality and customer service rather than margins, rather than price and bland appeal.
Okay, unscrambler of eggs. That seems to be tagged on your name a fair amount. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when I was doing tech support, when I first sort of got into the business, I was talking on the phone with my father and we were talking about what I did for a living and my job, and my dad's not a technical person like many people's fathers are. So I tried to break it down as best I could, and eventually he boiled it down to the most succinct thing. I unscrambled people's eggs. So I just took it, I stole it, I ran with it, and it's great SEO because nobody else takes that, and you just Google unscramble of eggs and you find me. So there you go.
So what is a day in the life of Dean Brundage at New Republic Brewery Company like?
It's not all get up, drink beer, sadly. Sometimes it is, but not always. Let's see, this morning, got up, we had our weekly operations planning meeting, planned the rest of the week out, and the following week. And then I just sent my minions off to do stuff, and I played around on Facebook and drank a beer. No. I have my hands in a lot of different things, mostly, so since I oversee operations, I gotta make sure that the beer gets made, and packaged, and delivered, and everything comes back to us in good working order. So I got people that I tell to do that. Sometimes I do that myself, oftentimes I do that myself. We're also looking at my partner and I were trying to figure out where to go next with the business, so we do a little strategy meeting sometimes. Come about lunchtime, we crack open the beers and have a beer with lunch. Sit around and talk with the guys about what we're doing, decisions we make. Let's see, today I also did some 3-year projections for some of our supplies. So supply chain management, do a little bit of that. And then about 3 o'clock I have a beer, look over some spreadsheets, try not to get too cross-eyed. Sometimes I read legislation. You need a couple beers for that for sure. We're a very heavily regulated industry, so it's I'm getting used to reading TABC marketing practices bulletins. It's kind of fun. Oftentimes we are at the brewery until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, making beer, packaging beer, and actually working. And sometimes we're done at 5 o'clock and we're sitting out on the patio having a beer. So it revolves around beer because business is beer-centric.
And what is your main selling point? Do you sell locally or kind of all over the place?
We started off real small in 2010, 2011 when we first started production. We were a very small operation. My partner and I both were home brewers, so we wanted to see if we could take that hobby, turn it into a business. One, we wanted to see if we could still like that hobby after 6 months of doing the same thing over and over again every day. So we started off very small, low risk for us, so we just delivered to a couple. We had about 6 accounts in Bryan College Station. I used to tell people we were in both markets, Bryan and College Station. And now we went through an upgrade, and we finished we did a seed round. I guess it's called a seed round. I don't know. We raised some private equity. We spent all that money by the beginning of this year, and we're sort of operating at a bigger scale. We're pushing down into Houston. We're still in both markets, Bryan and College Station, but now we've added a little bit in Houston as a small part of our market.
So what's been the biggest challenge while working in the beverage or beer industry?
All of it. The biggest challenge. Trying to stay focused on what needs to happen right now and think about what needs to happen in 3 months, in 6 months, in 3 years. So trying to do what you need to do to get your day done and get the stuff that needs to happen this week, and then zoom out, big picture, and try not to get whiplash going back and forth.
And what's been the response so far? Has it been hard to gain traction in the beer industry here locally so far?
We're sort of just starting off. We picked all of the low-hanging fruit in the first 2 years. It was great because that's all the beer we could produce. So we sold everything we made. It was a hobby that paid for itself. It was cool. And now we're trying to break into more retailers here in town. This town is a little bit afraid of a $5 pint of beer, but we're working to change that. Houston loves us. Houston gobbles us up, so that's why we got down there, and we're doing our best to get craft beer into the hands of everybody who wants to drink a craft beer and everybody who doesn't know they want to drink a craft beer.
Besides obvious reasons, how has the beverage industry been different than the technology industry?
Anybody want to point out the obvious ways that beer and technology are different? How are they different? Well, I went to work every day as an employee, and went home at 5 o'clock every day as an employee, and sometimes 6 o'clock. I was on call every once in a while, but that was fine. So it's starkly different as from an employee standpoint, whereas my tail end is on the line. I can say ass, right? My ass is on the line. Every day, and now I've got 5 people working for me who sort of depend on the business. So it's not just me, it's not just my wife, it's not just my partner and his wife, it's a bunch of other people. So where was I? The differences between technology. I don't sit around at a computer much anymore, although I'm starting to now that I have people to brew beer for me and do that. I don't get to program. I don't get to spend long amounts of time concentrating on one thing. You gotta run back and forth between different things. So technology is very different. They're both great and rewarding in their own way.
What are you most excited for in the future as an entrepreneur?
Just getting up the next day and doing the same thing. I like what I do. I want to keep liking what I do. I love what I do. And if we can hang on to this business and grow it, then that's what I'm excited for. Sometimes it's hard to think about my personal life outside of the brewery, or what sort of things I want for myself or my family in the future. But if the business is good, and we're good.
Do you have any worries or for the future?
I have innumerable worries. But so my partner and I, we have a good dynamic. I'm the guy who says we can do it. He's the guy who says we can probably do it, but there's all these reasons why we can't do it. So we put our heads together and figure things out. So I am not the worrying type. I'm beginning to be the worrying type. I got this knot right back here today. Thinking about hot projections for the future. But me, I'm more of a let's do it and see what happens. I have confidence in myself that we can overcome any obstacle that we get into. And my partner is the one who points out all those obstacles. So we got a good dynamic going there.
As an entrepreneur, what would be the best piece of advice you could give to a young and aspiring entrepreneur?
I think as an entrepreneur, you need a equal mix of narcissism and naivety. So anything I tell you is going to sound kind of cliche or cheerleading. So find something you love to do. I found something I love to do. You'll never work a day in your life, that kind of nonsense. And go for it, have fun. That's what I like to do.
Okay, well, I think we finished a little ahead of schedule. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Brundage? You're right here in the middle.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, when you start up your business, where's the funding come from?
Sure, the question was, when I started up the business, where did the funding come from? We had two basic rounds of funding. The first one was to start up a little tiny business, the sort of test business. That came from friends and family. We sold off a little tiny piece of the company. We raised $20,000. We should have raised 50. And then the second round, which was last year sometime, maybe 2013, 2014. What year is it? 2014. So it was the year before last when we started raising. That was another $300,000 from some of those same friends and family. We opened it up to more broader people that who could afford the new higher share price. We should have raised $500,000 there. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would that be your Kickstarter campaign?
Now, our Kickstarter campaign was sort of a bonus campaign. Kickstarter, unless you have a really cool product or a lot of people want your thing, Kickstarter you can raise maybe $15,000 like we did. Not nearly enough to fund a company of much size. So Kickstarter was a little bonus thing. We bought ourselves a canning line. So we raised $17,000 in Kickstarter. I have all kinds of stories about that if you want to talk about that later. Yeah.
Have you heard of Caskers, and what are your thoughts about that if you have?
Heard of what?
Caskers, it's a startup that introduces their users to local spirits, local craft beers.
Casters North, huh?
Caskers.
Caskers.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard of that.
It's a new startup and it just got acquired by somebody really big for like hundreds of millions of dollars, and
Lucky them.
they have like 50,000 users that buy local beers and stuff like that aren't available at the local liquor store.
Cool, I'll check out Caskers. Thanks. Yeah.
How do you find the competition for shelving? I see that as a major issue with a lot of the distributors.
Yeah. So the question was, how do I find the competition for shelving with everybody else? Craft beer is undergoing a pretty good boom right now in Texas, especially. It is tooth and nail to fight for tap handle space, shelf space. We're just getting into package right now, so that's going to come later. But yeah, there are lots of other companies out there. The biggest thing we see is the biggest competition comes from the distributors. They can come in with a portfolio and take off half the taps or all of the taps because they still have a diverse offering, whereas we're focused on one brand. Sometimes we're lucky to get one tap handle, and then the problem is keeping it. So it's tough.
Is there some sort of strategy to teaming up with other craft beers, utilizing the same strategy?
No, when we get together with the other craft brewers in Texas, we're like one big happy fraternity sorority thing going on. we get together. Most of my guys are down at the guild meeting tonight. We try really hard not to collude, and so that's basically the only rule at the guild meeting is don't get into trouble with the FCC or the AA or whoever's supposed to do that sort of thing. So now we a lot of it depends on the individual business strategy really. We're self-distributed, so we're going to focus on our one brand and focus that way. If we send it off to a distributor, they're just going to stuff it into their portfolio. We have to work just as hard with them as we do with our own brand. So we're trying to figure out what to do with all of that nonsense right now. There's a question in the back somewhere? Yeah.
So with the size of your business right now, how many different like recipes are y'all trying to push at once?
Yeah, this is a good question because I just did raw materials projections for the next 3 years. So I had to figure out what beers we're going to be making in 2017. Anybody know what they're going to be doing in 2017? I think I came up with a list of about 20 beers that I want to make. Most of them are going to go into the tap room only, basically sold on site. I say about 8 of them are going to go out into the world to begin with over the next 3 years. So it's we're also going to have fun with it. I'm going to tell my guys we're installing a new tap wall, so each of my guys is going to get one tap handle to themselves that they got to keep full of beer all the time. So we'll have a lot of different beers in the brewery. That's part of the fun of being in a brewery. You get to experiment with products.
So I know one problem with brewing is trying to make everything reproducible, and Texas has some really fluctuating weather at the very best of times. So has that ever been a problem for you guys?
The question is, how do I keep my recipes consistent in Texas weather? The weather is the least of my worries. We have very good temperature controls for our beer fermenting. There's a couple steps in the process that you need tight control over your temperatures. I have a glycol system that has a glycol running at 25 degrees Fahrenheit. That sort of circulates around the outside of my fermenters, keeps them nice and cold. I've got 3 tanks, 9, 12, 1,300 gallons of beer at 32 degrees Fahrenheit right now. So that's cool. Weather's no problem. Unless it gets too cold. I don't have a lot of heating in the brewery. There are lots and lots of other factors, especially since we're dealing with a live organism, a yeast. It gets unhappy if you abuse it, and sometimes we abuse it on purpose. So that's one of the other things that we're learning in the brewery is quality control, QA, QC. It's really important. I've got a tank of beer that I'm going to have to dump. In fact, 300 gallons of those is going to go down the drain tomorrow. It's not fun. Any other questions?
How would you describe your transition from full-time employment to going full-time for your business? Like, how did you handle that transition as far as financially supporting yourself, and how would you recommend others making that transition?
Sure. So how did I go from full-time employee to making no money at all, being an entrepreneur? So I started part-time, and that's how we did it. We in 2010 we were putting in all of our extra hours and weekend hours. My partner and I both kept our real job and worked this second job. So we basically have 2.5 jobs: the real job, the entrepreneur, and the family. So use up all your time if you don't have money. That's the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, have you had any trouble balancing beers that you want to make versus beers that people will want to buy? I mean,
I don't make the distinction. People want to buy the beers I make. The craft brewing segment is diverse enough that I can find my niches and make a decent living. So yeah, we brew the beers we want to drink, and that's fine if you want to buy it. So I think that I'm the test market, and so that's if I want to drink it, the other people will want to drink it, and that's I found that's a pretty good litmus test. If you're not too full of yourself, you can just make something you want to drink, and there are enough people out there like you. You're all very special and unique snowflakes, just like everybody else. So there are enough people out there that want to buy your product. You don't have to worry too much about that.
So you mentioned that you asked your friends, family to give you some money for startup. How you persuade them?
With my
Do you
smile.
have any trick?
I have no idea to this day. I don't know why my friends and family invested in my business. I guess they believed in me, and we had a decent business plan the first time, and we had a very good business plan the second time. Planning is invaluable. Plans are worthless. So know what you're talking about. Research. Do the research. Know where you're coming from. And that's something you should even do before you even think about going for money is do the research yourself. Figure out if you can actually make a go at it. And if you don't believe that you can, why are you asking people to give you money? Yeah, Don.
May I brag on you a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Don is one of my advisors.
When Dean formed the brewing club, he showed quite a bit of leadership and organizational skills. So everybody who was a microbrewer in town knew him through those actions. Then he makes really good beer. So at the brew club meetings, when we're trading our bottles around, I always felt very insecure, although my friends loved my stuff. Compared to him, forget it. So when he says, well, I'm doing a business plan, open a microbrewery, everybody paid attention because he was very credible. He wasn't doing a we knew the man, we knew his capabilities, we saw his skills in action, so it was a natural leap when he said, well, I've been working on this business plan with my partner here, John, and this is what we've got in mind. And they lined up pretty quick, as I recall, for that first round.
Yeah, it was easier than we thought it was going to be.
So that's how we really got the start on those lines.
And then, yeah, I'll get you in a second. Then we had been doing it for 2 years, so it was a lot easier to go, 18 months. We had been doing it for 18 months, running a business that was actually making money. And so it was pretty easy to hey, here's our proof of concept, let's go bigger.
And he had an exit plan at the 6 months. That was a very unique thing about what he was doing also. He had a go, no-go milestone at 6 months. If it didn't work, he managed the expectations of his investors at the 6-month mark, which was very unique and gave him even more credibility, which made it easier for him to sell the idea at the time.
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, what percentage in general on costs y'all would on an average brewery, craft brewery, spend on advertisement?
Very close to zero, which is a problem. We're running into that problem. People don't know about us. Anybody heard of us before tonight? Oh, that's good. So we're getting around. We've been in business for 3 years, right here in Aggieland, making beer, and not many people know about us. That's a problem we're trying to figure out. We're getting our feet into advertising. Mostly it's just going on a copy corner and printing out 200 flyers and sticking them up where we think people are going to be. The other is our tap handle on the wall. People see that, that's advertising. The other is our bottles in the grocery store, that's advertising. We ran a couple of radio spots during either the LSU game, the Alabama game last year. That did okay. We had no way to measure that, so we don't really know where our money went with that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all of those are great. Free advertising avenues, but Facebook's model is they want us to pay for advertising, and they want you guys to not see advertising you don't want to see. So it's sort of a back and forth, a pull between how much we spend there and how annoying it is. So we don't spend a lot of money on Facebook. We're trying to figure out our advertising and marketing strategy going forward. Yeah.
So a lot of startups today kind of use outsourced capacity as a way to scale their operations. And in the brewing industry, I've run into a lot of microbrewers that have also used that. So it sounds like you're keeping control of your production. Is outsourcing something that you've thought about using, and is there even sufficient outsourcing capacity here in Texas?
Every brewery in Texas is at their capacity. First of all, when we first started this business, contract brewing or alternating proprietorships, which are how a lot of little breweries use to start up, were illegal. I could not take a brand and have it made at another brewery that has capacity. That's totally illegal. Right now, just at the beginning of this year it became legal. So we're looking at that since we are not at capacity. We're looking at to become, we sell our capacity. Because there are a lot of little starter breweries out there. So every brewery in Texas is at capacity. Nobody has tanks to spare. So we couldn't do it if we wanted to.
So that's an interesting thought. There's a lot of ways to make money. And it sounds like you came into business for a specific purpose. Like you wanted to have your own brewery, brew your own beer. What are your boundaries as far as what you're willing to do, what you aren't willing to do, keep the brand, your brand?
Sure. Yeah, we have thought about where we want to go and how we want to take this. Me personally, I have an exit strategy. I want to get back to California now in a couple of years, probably 3 to 5. And that's because I love it there. That's where I grew up. That's where our family is. So I want to sell out to my partner, so he knows that. My partner wants to retire at this business. He wants to keep this sort of a manageable, sizable business, profitable, but he just wants to do this for the rest of his life. So we have different philosophies on that, and we both are aware of them, and we're both trying to keep those in mind. However, if some big brewery came and offered us a pile of money, we'd probably sell out and go do another brewery or something else. So we're in agreement there, and we just want to make this sort of a local, a regional craft brewery. We don't want to get too big. We probably will never distribute outside of Texas unless I take the name New Republic back to California and start off a franchise up there, which is in the cards. It's possible. So keep it small, keep it manageable, employ some people, have a good time, do good for the community.
When did you start testing your business when you were transitioning between your part-time job and the planning phase?
Testing? How do you mean?
Like trying to see like who you could sell to and get your audience together.
The question is how do we start testing our business while we were transitioning? Sadly, part of the regulation that we're on, you have to commit a certain number of resources up front. You have to get licensed. You have to rent your space. So there's no way I could sell my home brew, the stuff I was making at home, to anybody. That being said, while we were in our planning stages, every week, John and I would get together in my front yard, invite all our friends over, make a batch of beer, and serve the batch of beer that we made 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Just to get the word out, hey, we're starting a brewery. This is what we're going to be doing. So there are ways, you have to be creative to get around the laws. You have to be very creative to get around the laws. And some laws aren't worth getting around. But the whole first 18 months of this was basically a test to see how well it was received. We could make beer on a small scale, and it happened, it worked. So I didn't take a salary until after we raised our second round. And then we ran out of startup money, and I'm not taking a salary anymore. So be prepared for that sort of thing. Yeah.
So Texas is kind of a latecomer in the world of homebrewing. I come from Minnesota, where back in the early 80s we had kind of the first startups like this. And on the coast, it's a long time ago, but Texas seems to not have too many brands. Whereas in total across the U.S. now, I think there are like 2,200 different brands I read recently. So what is it about Texas that has made this kind of a really slow environment for building beer brands and kind of going the microbrewing route?
In the preamble to the TABC, all the rules and regulations that TABC has. It says, one of the first couple sentences, the ideas behind prohibition were noble. This is where we're coming from. So a lot of that we can blame on the laws, and that's an easy out. Personally, I don't know. I've only been here since '08, and all I've seen is change and people accepting that change. So you got me. I don't know why.
I feel it has to do with a lot of lobbying that the larger breweries instigate in reference to laws and rules to lessen the amount of growth for smaller breweries.
Our adversaries in the legal realm of things are not the bigger breweries, it's the larger distributors. The distributors actually run the whole show. They have the power, basically, even over Bud Miller Coors. They spend a lot of money trying to protect what they have, and that's the right to distribute beer and to make a lot of money off the distributors. So, hey, if you want to get to the beer business, become a distributor. So some of them have fought us. We went through, we are starting to change the laws as a guild. 2011 was sort of the first time that we all pulled together as a guild and tried to change the laws. That kind of failed utterly. And then 2013 was much better, but we were fought by the distributors. So we had one distributor backing us up, another big distributor fighting us. So it's going to be a slow change, but it's happening. Yeah.
How large of a decision was it to bring more people into the business, and how did you? I mean, was it just would you go out and find anybody, or did you really have to vet them before you allowed them to come on?
What's good about this business is, and this town is, I get 1 or 2 board seniors every single semester coming out looking to volunteer their time. So if anybody wants to come out and volunteer their time, I'm open. So I had, I've got 3 guys who are working for me now. One of them's getting paid. 2 of them are getting paid now. And they've been working for me for at least a year before I actually hired them. Sometimes I feel bad about that because I'm taking advantage of people with lots of free time, and these guys are really dedicated. They come out, they stay out till 1 in the morning working. So I couldn't be here without them. And gals now too. I've got a couple gals who come out and help. So they either stay at the brewery until they get hired, and that's a long time. They stay at the brewery for a couple days, realize it's actual work, and take off. Or they stay at the brewery long enough to leverage that into a career at another brewery, a real brewery. So I've had 6 of my interns go get jobs at other Texas breweries and distilleries. Yeah.
That kind of segues into culture. Can you talk a little bit about your company culture?
Company culture. That's something I'm just sort of starting to think about now that we actually have a company of just more than 4 founders. It's laid back. There's going to be beer, and we like to have a good time. But at the same time, we're all very serious. We make a craft product. We take pride in our work. We don't want to put garbage out on the market and lower the bar and do harm to the beer industry. So we're all, I don't know, it's a kind of a cool mix of taking the work seriously and at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, relax. What we really want to do is share what we make with our friends and other people. So that's really what we're all about, is sharing our beer. Anybody else? Did I just kill the question and answer session?
One more follow-on.
Yes, ma'am.
Branding is very important, and especially with you guys, you do such a good job with it. I don't know if everything is helping you or if it's all generated in-house, but you guys do an awesome job with branding. Could you talk about the importance of that?
I would love to talk about my branding team. They are awesome. So when I was in technology, I was working from home, which is how I got out here, because A&M offered my wife a ride for her PhD in her dream field, so I was working from home, so I said, all right, let's go. So I was renting an office up in downtown Bryan with a bunch of other people, a bunch of other startups and freelancers, because I was just stuck in my office, my home, all day for 3 weeks. And then when my wife came home, she was tired and didn't want to go out, and I just wanted to get out of the house. So anyway, I ended up renting an office with a design company, a guy named Robbie Fitzhenry, Jeff Blickenstaff. They run Always Creative. And he made the fatal mistake of telling me it was his life's goal to brand a brewery. And so they give us a really good deal. They do a bang-up job. Branding is something you want to spend money on. Because if your brand looks like garbage, you're going to give that impression to people. I couldn't be happier with them. They're expensive. They're too expensive for us, but they're giving us a very good deal. Anybody else? Thank you for listening to me prattle on about stuff I don't know how to do. And thanks for having me out.
Yeah.